And then the guy sees me and goes, oh my God, I can die happy now. And he just comes and gives me the biggest hug and like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever.
Today's guest is David Babcock, a world-class Will Ferrell impersonator, master of entertainment marketing, and one of the most effective trade show magnets out there. David helps brands dominate trade shows by turning booths into crowd-pulling experiences that drive real leads, real conversations, and serious ROI. And I'm talking millions. From Ron Burgundy, Ricky Bobby, Buddy the Elf, he's worked over 200 trade shows across North America and Europe, partnering with brands like Google, Warner Brothers, Nissan, Chevron, Cisco, T-Mobile, on the list goes. He's been named one of the most epic cosplayers of all time, featured by Comedy Central, Nerdist, ABC News, and most importantly, Stan Lee himself. He's even one of the most requested performers on Cameo. This is a fun episode, my friends, so let's get to the conversation.
Welcome, everybody, to the Connector Podcast. Welcome back, welcome back. For anybody who can see my guest here, give a little hello there, buddy, or David, or whatever your name is.
Son of a nutcracker. It's David Babcock. Hi, how are you?
my friend David, that we found each other online, and I was taken aback by his uncanny resemblance to one Mr. Will Ferrell. And I'm excited to dive into this conversation because, David, you are actually like a super interesting person, completely outside of your impersonator career, but obviously we're dressed up a little bit here. This episode's probably coming out after Christmas, so you might be thinking, why am I seeing this in January? But
well, Christmas, should come 12 times a year, but it just doesn't. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Christmas in January. We'll get that started. How about that?
Yeah, I do have a question though. For one quick question for Buddy. Am I on the list?
I don't have the book handy. Sorry, Josh. I'm guessing probably not.
All right, just send me a DM later. Buddy the Elf DMs people. So
right.
Quick interjection to the podcast because I have a sponsor for this episode. Me.
Bruh.
And the Connector Fight Club school community. I just wanted to quickly plug the fact that I created a school community to complement and supplement this podcast. So if you want extended lessons about different topics maybe my guests are subject matter experts on, if you want a community of like-minded entrepreneurs growing together, if you want giveaways, if you want tons of valuable content, if you want pre-written scripts and AI tools and different methods to communicate and network online effectively, to use all my years of knowledge and wisdom as an entrepreneur in so many different areas, and not just mine, but all of my friends that I'm calling in favors for, who are experts, who are millionaires, who are successful entrepreneurs across different fields. They're coming in, they're teaching awesome lessons. We're building an awesome, solid community. So get in there now. Links in the description. Go please. Okay, thanks.
But David, I'd love to start off with the first few minutes, as much or as little as you want to share just about your background, your life. Oh, there he is. There's the real hair.
How you doing?
Yeah, just your story a bit. How'd you get into this kind of work? What do you do, quote unquote, professionally that helps support this? And I know now this kind of work, frankly, probably helps support everything else. So we'd just love to know more about your story.
Right. Well, when it comes to the impersonator stuff, that I call it entertainment marketing, really, because people say impersonator and it has all kinds of connotations, right? And some of them are negative. But like imposter or whatever, almost like he smells like beef and cheese. He's an imposter, like this other guy in the other window right here, whatever. You're not Santa. No, but so I really just didn't put it all together. It's kind of a whole long story. My whole life kind of intertwines all together, and it sort of ends up here. And here is being a sort of a Will Ferrell celebrity impersonator, right? Which really adds to the rest of it, or combines with the rest of it. It's sort of like I kind of watched. It was a commencement speech from the guy from Apple, Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs, and he gave this commencement exercise, and he gave this whole thing like, look, I was studying this and I quit school, but I went back and I learned this and I learned this and I learned this and I learned this. And somehow it became all of this, right? And it was all those little things, the fonts and the typography and the art and the things. He was all interested in computers, and it all came together. And it's similar kind of thing for me because I had acting and marketing and creative and websites and, all this kind of stuff. And then people started saying I look like Will Ferrell, and which I didn't take as a compliment at all, really. I thought, oh man, I'm not aging well, right? so, so, anyway, it was mostly my kids' friends, and they'd whisper it to her or my son, and he'd say it, and they'd laugh, it was kind of a joke. And but then my wife one time about 13 years ago saw one of the radio stations was having a party at Halloween, and they were giving away a trip to New York City. And we live in Kansas City, right? So that seems like kind of a big deal. And so she's like, and you're going to be Ron Burgundy, and I'm going to be Veronica Corningstone, and we're going to go down, and maybe we can win this trip. And at the time, I pretty much said, what am I, 12? I'm not wearing a costume, and I just like passed it off. And so eventually I had done that a couple of times, and eventually she said, well, what happened to that spontaneous man I married? Right. And then it was like, well, I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. She's getting a lawyer. This doesn't end well. Right. Go get a jacket, go get a wig, time to do it. Right. So I did. And I got the worst wig at the Halloween store, the worst mustache at the Halloween store. I mean, it was like the only one they had. Right. That kind of stuff. It's like kind of dark men's wig, right? Generic.
Yeah.
And then the jacket, literally, I spent probably an hour in the thrift store looking for stuff. And what I found was a gray jacket. It was $4. And I
Nice.
couldn't find any red jackets. I did find some red pants in the women's section, and they were just fairly straight leg, they fit, so I took those. And then next door to Goodwill was Ace Hardware, where they had lots of cans of red spray paint. And so I spray painted that jacket red. I had it hanging in the backyard from a hook, from a hanger, and I sunk 3 or 4 cans into that thing, and it still looked kind of gray with some red in it, and it smelled like pure gasoline, Josh. It stings the nostrils, but
I was going to say that's radioactive after a while.
Yeah, I was completely flammable. It was probably not a good idea, but we went down to the thing. Well, honestly, as soon as I put on that mustache and looking in the mirror, I went, what just happened? I see it now. There it is. There's Ron Burgundy, a really bad Ron Burgundy, but it's definitely Ron Burgundy. And so we went down to the show, right? And on the way down there, I'm like, keep looking in the mirror while I'm driving, like, oh my, I'm going to win this thing. What? How can I not? Right? And we got down there, and it was really just one of those things where I started talking to people. I went up to somebody. I had a paint roller that I had wrapped like black electrical tape on the bottom half, right? Or so it looked kind of like a stupid microphone. And I went up to Batman, like, Batman, tell me what's going on in Gotham City. The people of San Diego need to know, And they just busted out laughing and whatever. And I kind of riffed with him a little bit, made friends, went back to my wife, took a drink, said, wow, you just won't believe what just happened, right? And I'm going to go try Spider-Man's group, right? So go over to, 5 people standing around Spider-Man over here, and did the same thing. And at the end of the night, the award was given away by applause. And when Batman was up there, man, his whole crowd was going super nuts, right? And so was Spider-Man. They're his crowd, but there was only 5 or 6 people with them, right? And everybody gave a little golf clap for me, right? Hey, Ron came by, but everybody was doing it, right? And so somehow that pushed me over the top, and so we won that trip. And that was sort of eye-opening at that time. My wife's a stylist. She does hair, makeup, right? And so I thought, I can grow a pretty good mustache. Maybe by next year, and she goes, oh, I can dye your hair, and we could style it up and make it real. And I tell you what, the next Halloween, it was legit. I mean, it was like the same jacket, the same crappy jacket, right? The same, but the sideburns and the hair and the mustache was legit. And I can't grow it dark like that. Obviously, she colors it and everything.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into making me into that guy. But once you get in that, Ron suit, I'm Ron, right? And I think part of that, going back to what I said earlier about the, all the little things that lead up to it, I had done an audition. I had in fifth and sixth grade, I like got the main part in the little plays, right? And so it was always in the back of my head, I was just kind of a natural. The teacher's like, oh, he's the guy for sure. He's the judge. He's Abraham Lincoln, whatever. I mean, put this in Abraham Lincoln, right? So it must be something else besides what I look like, So I always had that in the back of my head. So at some point, probably 20 years ago, they were filming a commercial. No, it was a movie here in Kansas City, and I somehow figured out what it was and got to go to the audition. And I had it all set up. I thought I was going to be, in this movie. I can get in this movie for sure. Just whatever. And I didn't, right? So I did the audition, and I thought I had it perfect. I had it all set up. I had it so rehearsed, right? And then the director and like 15 people in this room looking straight at you. One guy with standing at an X on the floor it was intimidating, let me tell you. And he said, okay, that's not too bad. Now, why don't you take this line out, put that out, don't do this with the thing, and then stop it here. And I just went, and I had no idea. I was like, what did he even just say? I don't know. So I did whatever I did, and I learned at that point that I can't take direction, I think is what I learned. So and that doesn't really surprise me too much, but anyway, so I walked out there, didn't get a part. And I thought, well, hell, I'll give it a shot, whatever. And so later on, about 6 months later, somehow one of those people in that room was a casting director here in Kansas City. And I got a message or a call or whatever it was. And she said, hey, can you come down to, Vidro's studio? And Nick Vidros, come to find out, was one of the top commercial photographers in the planet. And he's right here in Kansas City. And my first gig was shooting for 𝗗𝗶𝗃𝗃 football promotion, national thing, and she said, you just got the face, you got the look, we're going to put you in it. I'm like, okay, right? And so that's kind of how I really got into some acting stuff. So I'd been in, and then I got to be in some films, bunch of TV commercials, bunch of print ads, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's even that right there is kind of a resume, right? But it gave me a lot of experience, a lot of behind the scenes. I'm always looking at what the cameras are doing, whatever. I end up now I have on IMDb, I have a bunch of films on there, not a bunch, maybe 4 or 5 showing up on there, right? But then I've got producing on there. So, and I've got camera operator on there. So
Nice.
I've got enough experience in the acting world that this sort of played right into this thing, right? And so when I started looking like it, and then I had my wife can style it and get me the right stuff, the right jacket, the right hair, all this kind of stuff. Then my acting, right? And then I started putting all that together. And then eventually, about the 3rd year of winning almost every Halloween contest we went to, like we were either first or second, no question, right across the board. And we'd only go where they're giving away the most money in town,
Nice.
in Kansas City. Like Friday this much, Saturday this much. We're going to get. And so we did that. And then about the 3rd or maybe it was the 4th year, I was carrying a big TV that I won out of this bar, right? At 2:00 in the morning. And the bar manager, I guess, whatever, he said, will you host New Year's Eve for us as Ron Burgundy? Right? And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. What does that mean? He goes, I'll give you a table, best table in the house. I'll give you a bar tab, food, drink, everything you want. Right? And I said, and then he goes, all you got to do is introduce the band. Maybe do what you did tonight. Just run around, take pictures with people and, joke around, whatever. And I said, well, what else you got? And he said, well, you can invite all your friends. You can all invite all your friends. They can get in free. They can be on your bar tab. You can have a heck of a party, And I said, well, it sounds pretty good, but I don't like my friends that much, And he said, I'll give you all that in $1,200. And I was like, oh, hey, now, and now it sounds kind of good, right? So that's how it turned pro, right? Kind of a professional paid thing, not just like amateur contests, whatever. So I guess you could say I went from cosplay to cospro at that point, but I was never really cosplayer. even then. So, but but I did it. And then I thought, well, I'm doing it. So I have all these photos from all these years. So I can start building a website because that's what I do. I can get all the social media. I cornered all the domain names I could think of, right? They're $10 a piece on GoDaddy. So I just got all of this stuff, got it all lined up, started redirecting all these things, getting the SEO all put together, all this kind of stuff. And it was just a couple months later, I got a message on one of the sites, and they said, yeah, my wife, it was the wife, my husband is the prosecuting attorney in Omaha, and he loves Ron Burgundy. Would you come to his birthday party? And I was like, what? Sure. Yeah. So we worked out a deal, and off I went, and so it just kind of started out like that, and it really started clicking pretty good. So anyway, that's 10 years ago now.
Wow. That's, I love it.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, but 10 years, it's come a long way, because nobody teaches you how to do this stuff, right? There's not go to celebrity impersonator marketing school, right? And so I had to try and figure out, well, where are these gigs going to come from, right?
Yeah.
And so I really started marketing into businesses and stuff like that. And that's when I started. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but when I picked up Chevron as a big client, and apologies to all the people that are against oil companies or whatever, I understand but they wanted me to come and pay me great and do kind of stuff. So I did. And now I've worked for every type, every business, every kind of business that you can imagine, from a small marketing company on up to Chevron, Google. I got a story for you. A guy, let's back it up a little bit. Mentioned cosplay, right? Well, I wasn't a cosplayer. I never thought of that. I never considered that. I never went to a Comic-Con. I never even thought about it, really, right? But then once I really got into doing this and stuff, I thought, well, that's kind of what this is. It's all based on movie characters or TV characters and stuff. So I thought, well, I better just go to one and see, it's marketing, right?
Right.
I'm in there, something will happen. And that's kind of the way I do things. I always stick my neck, in there to see what's going to happen, right? And so I went to it was like Kansas City Comic-Con or Planet Comic-Con here in Kansas City. There's two of them that kind of rotate around, but I don't remember which one it was, honestly. So, but there's a professional photographers there, and a few of them are, there's all levels of photography there, right? There's guys that have a pretty good camera. There's guys that just have their own phone. There's guys that are doing a little podcast. There's guys that are like trying to find the shot, right, for the pro that they can sell or whatever. And I think that guy found me because he took some photos of me, and they ended up probably a week later on can't remember
4chan.
No, it was it's like a entertainment media website. I really can't. 4chan. There is probably plenty of them on there. I don't know what they're doing with them over there. I haven't gone there, so
that's a dated website reference there.
Yeah, well, it's probably still around, but anyway, so it got on there. Board Panda, that's what it was. Boardpanda.com. And so it's kind of like entertainment stuff, whatever. And so they had a top 30 cosplayer story, right? And I was like, somehow I found out, or somebody saw it and sent it to me. I'm like, oh crap, I'm top 30. How'd that happen? Wow, okay. And just from going to that Comic-Con in Kansas City. So that's what I mean by just stick your neck in there, stick your neck out, put your head in there and see what's going to happen, and something's going to happen. At least for me, that's kind of how it works. And I think for most people, they just don't realize that. But that's what you have to do to make stuff happen. You have to do whatever, and you have to go, and you have to be there. You have to try stuff. You have to reach out. So anyway, that's what I did, and that's what happened. And then it was like they boiled down from those 30 down to 20 for the real StanLee.com. Then a couple weeks later, all of a sudden that story came out, and it was top 20. And I was number 20, just to be quite honest with you here. So I kind of barely made the cut, right in there. And so
I'll cut out your voice when you said 20, and I'll just say number 1.
Yeah, okay. Number one.
Flawless victory.
So anyway, that really sort of set me up to really kind of try to understand what that whole Comic-Con thing was about. And so what I did was I went to the Comic-Con website in San Diego, right? The real San Diego Comic-Con, which is kind of what I call the mothership of the whole thing. They started that back in San Diego like 50 years ago, and they might be longer than 55 years ago now. And they just basically invented the genre. They invented the thing out there. And so I thought, well, I got to go there because, if I go here and I get that, then that's clearly the next step. And so you have to join a club, and then you have to like get on some kind of lottery to even get a ticket into the building out there.
Oh, wow.
Apparently they have like twice as many people want to go to the thing as can get in the building. And it's a massive convention center. I mean, it's massive. And there's hotels all over the place that are full of all this stuff. Right. So it's a ton of people. I don't know how many exactly people, but it's the biggest thing in San Diego for sure. I've been out there. I'm in San Diego once or twice a month, you know what I mean? For trade shows and whatever.
To host the news, you mean?
Yeah. Hosting the nightly news. Yeah. Channel 4, 6 o'clock.
From the entire Channel 4 news team, I'm Veronica Corningstone.
And I'm Ron Burgundy. Go f*** yourself, San Diego.
So anyway, I didn't get a ticket on the lottery. It said, nope, you don't get one because I guess they don't know, they don't know who I am. They don't know if it means anything.
Sure.
And you have to do that 6 months ahead. So 6 months ahead of the thing, you are not going to the show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, market some other direction. Keep going, keep pedaling, do whatever, right? And so, by the way, all this time I still have a real job, like a 40-hour-a-week job, right?
Sure.
And so it's like a lot of stuff going on. And so I kept looking at it and thinking about it. But about 3 weeks before the actual Comic-Con, I got a message from a guy online. He said, "Yep, I've got free tickets to the show for you, to the Comic-Con. I've got some panels we're going to. I got all the VIP parties, all you got to do is show up." And I was like, getting some plane tickets right now,
It's all about who you know.
So went out. Yeah. So went out there. And honestly, one of the things that I do is when I'm at a city, when I go into a city, which are trade show cities are like Vegas and San Diego and Dallas, Orlando, really. There's some in Chicago and New York, but not many other places. I mean, Louisville, I've been in Nashville. I've been to a bunch of them everywhere, but the big ones are San Diego, Vegas, Dallas, Orlando. And so, but when I go into those cities and I see or meet any media people, like traditional media people, more like TV, news, broadcast, stuff like that, I meet them, I talk to them, I try and get my client I'm working for on the media, right? That's kind of part of what I do for them. And it's not difficult. They're like, we're putting this guy on, he's the lead, call the station. We got the story, And so it's pretty easy, but I remember all those people and then I have them on my Instagram or wherever. So when I'm heading out somewhere, if I've made that deal with my client as well, that I will try to get you on media if you want it. Some people, that's not really what they're looking for. It's not going to help them too much be in that particular market in the local media. But, and so I did that for myself though, when I was going to San Diego that time, and I reached out to a bunch of stations and I heard back from one producer, and that one producer said, yeah, Thursday morning, first day of the show, 6:15 a.m. live right across from the convention center. Right. I'm like, okay, here we go. Right. And so that very morning, I got Ricky Bobby on, I got Ricky Bobby.
Oh, there it is.
Woo, shake a bake, baby. Yeah. So Ricky Bobby shows up and he's rearing to go, if you know what I'm saying. And he comes around the corner. Woo, if you ain't first, you're last. Get on and they just like, boom, live TV. Right. And then, of course, the anchor goes like this and he's got Superman. He's like dressed like, Clark Kent, and then he's got his Superman thing. So we just riff and have this great time. And and so he does. Anyway, so we do this thing, and I'm done, and I go, okay, now I'm going to go in the convention center, right? I probably had 50 people that day go, man, I saw you on TV this morning, man, that's awesome, So now I'm like, Well, been on Stan Lee, I'm on TV this morning, so now I'm kind of a big deal in here, but the guy I'm with knows everybody. I mean, I'm meeting people from Mythbusters and from Reno 911 and all
Nice.
these actors and stuff that are just walking around and doing everything. He knows them all. They're coming up to him like, hey, where you been? What's going on? What you been doing? And so I get to meet all kinds of people. I had, Thomas Patrick Lennon from Reno 911. He's the guy with the little
I
boots.
probably know the
and
face.
Real little
Yeah.
shorts and the boots, whatever. He's
Yes.
hilarious. He's in millions of shows, right? He looked up, he looked up and he saw my friend and he gave him a big hug like that. And then he goes, and this is like this. And then the guy sees me, he goes, oh my God, I can die happy now. And he just comes and gives me the biggest hug and like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Right. So that was the second day. I have to take it back because that was Ron Burgundy. And so, so it just blew him away. And so anyway, it was super fun, super great, had all kinds of stuff. And then late in the day, people started going, oh, dude, you're on TV. I'm like, I know I was on TV. I know I was on TV this morning. Thanks. And they're like, no, look, best cosplay of the show. A different station had filmed me somewhere doing something, which, I got everybody with the camera had hit me at some point during that day. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And in that first day, and that was Ricky Bobby. So the first day was Ricky Bobby. So they're like, no, best cosplay of show tonight on channel 6 on ABC 10. And that wasn't the station I was on this morning. Right. So now I'm like, they're promoting best cosplay of the show with my face for their evening news. Right. And I was like, okay, now my mind is kind of blowing. Right. And because how could you can't predict that. You can't even hope for that. Right. But I got it. So that was awesome. And then I woke up next day, did Ron Burgundy. And at the end of that day, there was Upworthy Media, which is kind of another one of those things. It's fairly well known. They got a lot of media. It's just media entertainment kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a list of some of they said the most epic cosplayers of all time at San Diego Comic-Con.
All time.
And there was Ron Burgundy right there. And they said something about people would have to yank his sunglasses off to see if this was really Will Ferrell walking through the thing. Right. And it just was mind-blowing trip, honestly. Right. But it just leads to, it's like credentials for me now. You know what I mean? Now, if somebody's like asking, well, there was that, that kind of stuff. So it's just good stuff to have on the website and for people to see kind of your credibility. I don't really advertise all my, my client list. I'll throw a little bit of that out there sometimes, or whatever. But it's mind-boggling to me even now at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I know you were telling me. No, I was just saying, I remember you telling me early in our conversations, just some of the Fortune 500 companies you get flown out to all across the country. And I didn't even know there was a market for this kind of stuff. Right. So I love that you used, in all this, in this whole story, it's really what I'm kind of hearing from this really is, hey, I wasn't planning this, I kind of had my life and just opportunities arose in a area I didn't expect to take them in. But if that was going to provide a better life for my family, if that was going to lead to more open doors, then what the heck, I'll slap on a wig if it makes my wife happy and gives us more opportunities. Right. And now look at all the cool shit you get to do.
Exactly. I mean, you did. I think I had this one on before we got on camera, but that's kind of, and like I said, my wife is a stylist, right? She'll do the hair, the real hair, she'll do the real hair when I'm going out to a show, but I'm also on Cameo. And that came out of going to that San Diego show too, right? Because I was going to going to a restaurant. Anyway, it's kind of, this is so, and then I, colored in a little bit and I'm like, hello, it's Ron. How do I look? Not too shabby. But you know what I mean. But so if I get a Cameo, which means a video, like somebody orders a video, and they come into, it comes in on a Thursday night. I don't happen to have a mustache. My wife isn't going to do the hair. Then I'll throw that wig on and put that fake mustache on, and I'll sit here and do the Cameo. But when I was in San Diego at that Comic-Con, my buddy who had me come out there, he was literally, he's like, oh my gosh, there's a restaurant up here and it has a Ron Burgundy sandwich, and we have to go. And I'm like, okay, sure. So we're walking. We walk a block. Where is this thing? It's it's up here a little ways. We walk another block away from the Comic-Con, right? And it's all uphill, up to through the gas lamp. It's all uphill away from the convention center. And so I'm like, where is this thing? I think it's 5 or 6 more blocks. And I'm like, dude, we can't. Dude, we need to be at the convention center. We don't need to go get a Ron Burgundy sandwich for any reason, right? There's food there. It doesn't matter. I get it. There's a Ron Burgundy sandwich, right? And I was just against it, right? And I didn't understand it was one of those moments happening that would lead to something more, right? Because you certainly don't always know it 90% of the way there. 100% of the way there, you do not know how this is turning out and what's going to happen. So that's what I mean. You have to be open to things, to a certain degree, I guess, right? But that's your own judgment. And I was against this. I was against going to get this stupid sandwich, 6-8 blocks from the convention center. So we got in there, and I'm looking at the sign. Yeah, okay, I guess I'll take a Ron Burgundy sandwich, whatever, right? I think I was still dressed in Ricky Bobby too. And so but while we're in there in line ordering the sandwich, somebody comes up behind us and they go, "Oh my gosh, Ricky Bobby, this is great. This is great. Hey, will you come out and eat lunch with me and my friends? Just right out on the sidewalk, there's a little table." I'm like, sure. Yeah, I guess. No problem. I go out there and she's like, well, I'm a PR person. I do PR for major league sports people, right, and some others and whatever. I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. That's cool. And like, yeah, and this is Carl McDowell, and I look over and it's TTD from Ballers on HBO, and so she represents him, right? And then the other guy I didn't recognize. I didn't know him because you probably wouldn't know his face necessarily, but he was the actual voice that sang the song that Simba, the little lion in The Lion King. I just can't wait to be king.
Oh, I just can't wait to be king.
I mean, you can hear it in your head. That's the guy that sang it, right? And it was a different kid that was the actor, but when it was the song, it was this guy. And so I'm like, oh, well, nice to meet you, this kind of stuff. And then she goes, oh, yeah, and I rep a pro Hall of Fame football player. He's a few blocks away. You want to go over there and meet him? I'm like, I got to get back to the convention center. It was really nice meeting you guys, and all. And it was fun, and you're right. So I'm still not quite feeling it. And she goes, well, if you need to get one of these guys, they're on Cameo, whatever, and you could, have them do a cameo for you or whatever. And I'm like, so how do you get on Cameo? She goes, oh, well, I'll send you an invitation. I know I'm on the inside track there. Mm-hmm. And so that's literally how I got on Cameo right there, just by accidentally and against my will, walking to get a Ron Burgundy sandwich, 6 blocks away. And so anyway, the Hall of Fame football player was her fiance and now husband, which was Andre Reed. The Buffalo Bills, of the big team that went to the Super Bowl 4 times and never won any of them. But yeah,
Shots fired.
I'm sure it's hard. Yeah, sorry, Andre. I know that's hard. But yeah, so anyway, a great guy though. So they invited me. Now I've gone to his celebrity golf tournament a couple of times.
Nice.
And get to meet all kinds of other people there and other Hall of Famers and all kinds of business people and stuff. So,
well, it's crazy.
Anyway,
I've tried to get on Cameo as Jackie Chan a few times, but people don't seem to want to buy. I don't know. I think I look like Jackie Chan.
I'll send you a code. I'll send you a code, an invite. I think you might be able to pull it off.
Yeah. I was thinking about it when you were telling your story. I too have done professional impersonations when I was a child. In my church play, there was 3. We did the 3 wise men, and the 3 wise men were kind of the stars. Mm-hmm. And each of the wise men was a celebrity. So one was Garth Brooks, one was James Brown, and one was, I think, Elvis. The problem with early 2000s Baptist church in Canada is there was no black people at that church. So guess who played James Brown?
Oh, yeah, interesting.
with an afro and everything.
Have you burned the
I should-
photos, or do you still have them?
Yeah, there's definitely no photo evidence of this, but
Yeah.
thankfully
Somebody's got
there was no paint being used, if you know what I mean. It was just an afro.
Oh, okay. All right, good. Yeah.
Also,
yeah, interesting.
I do have a very deep conspiracy question for you, though. Why are Halloween costume stores so bloody expensive when the actual material is so cheap? I always have thought it's probably a drug operation. I don't understand the cost margins here.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what to tell you. I think it's just a captured market. You got 10 minutes to go find something and go to your party. So
that's a good point.
They'll do it, and it's one of those things. They don't even have to sell all of them. They sell 5% of that stuff. They're going to make a profit when they do it that way. But
right.
Yeah, all of our. Speaking of that, I did use that same crappy jacket for a couple of years, but then I went out and got a really, sort of a nice suit. Hard to find a burgundy colored suit back then, let me tell you, because that's what I went with. In the movie, that you kind of think of it more as a red suit, but I went with a kind of a burgundy. You can you don't stand out quite as much. It goes over a little bit better, But I don't know, probably have 3 or 4 suits. I have a whole wall of cabinets and closets right here that, this one is long jackets and suits, and then this one is hair products and cologne and ties and socks, and then this one is all Ricky Bobby helmets and all kinds of stuff. This one is all Buddy the Elf and Jovi Elf and snowballs and all kinds of stuff. It's pretty crazy.
I am curious your thoughts on this, because it sounds like even though you got started in this stuff, like when did you get started? 10, 15 years ago, more?
I think it was about 13 years ago, the first costume contest I went to.
So this is very 13 years ago is early days of, I guess, social media influencers. And it sounds like you did quite a bit actually fairly local in the beginning, right? Within the Kansas area, but were able to then pick that up and become national. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Well, my first pro gig was local, and then the second one was Omaha. So it's like about a 3-hour drive from here. I honestly can't tell you where it went from there. But because I had the marketing background and the social media and and the creative director stuff, I've been in design and graphic design, and I was product development and stuff for a company for a long time. So I had to be, and it was a fairly small company. When you're that guy in a small company, you're doing the apps for the salespeople, the forms for the accounting, you're doing the website for the, you're doing the Shopify for the sales, you're doing, and everything in between, right? And so you really sort of get to know it inside out. Everything you need to do to be independent, to do it for yourself. So whatever I needed to do, I could do because I already did it for them, right? And so it was all SEO and mostly SEO on the websites really at first. Then social media came along pretty shortly thereafter, but not very long. But it's really all the social media points to, link in bio is to a website, and that website is pretty dialed in. And I have each one, it's what you have to do. For what I have to do is it's almost like different companies. Like there's a TikTok for Buddy the Elf, there's a Instagram for Buddy the Elf, and there's a website for Buddy the Elf, right? Because the SEO would say nobody's searching for a Will Ferrell impersonator, they're searching for a Buddy the Elf, or they want to see a Buddy the Elf. And when they get there, they want to only see Buddy the Elf. They want to know exactly what they're looking for. And the algorithms would tell you that you have to really dial it in. So if you're going to be like, some guy that you're kind of all generic, I like racing. Well, that's not even dialed in enough, right? You need to, is it NASCAR? Is it F1? And then if it's that, you even got to almost dial it down to a team or a car brand. Like I'm only a Toyota guy, or I'm only a Chevy guy, or, whatever. If you're really going to get your audience, you have to just boil it down to the minimum possible thing, and then that audience will find you there. But if you don't do that, then you're just out there shotgun blasting. You don't need that. You need the scope on with the target. You're like, that's my audience right there.
Yeah.
So that's just really how it works. So anyway, I've got a Ron Burgundy TikTok, a Ron Burgundy Instagram, I've got a Ron Burgundy website, and then I've got a 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁, all the same, you know. And Facebook is a little bit different. I don't put a lot of effort into Facebook anymore. I did kind of at first, but not all that much. And one of them got deleted or canceled or stolen or something somewhere along the line too. So I kind of had to restart. But I have one strictly Ron Burgundy Facebook, and then one that's just Will Ferrell Impersonator. So that if somebody does somehow just search that, then maybe they'll end up there. But then I just put 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁 and Buddy the Elf stuff on there, and maybe what we're doing for Halloween, because my wife will not go to a Halloween costume contest anymore with a professional. Right. So she's like, you're not wearing Ron, you're not wearing Ricky, you're not wearing Buddy. We've done it. We did it back in the old days. So we've done Halloween as tight pants guy. I don't know if you've seen that.
Like
and then we've done
SNL
cowbell.
sketch?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Got my
Jimmy
tight
Fallon
pants,
kind of thing.
got
but
my
it's
tight pants on.
Yeah. I got tight pants on.
Everybody's
I
talking
got
about my tight pants.
Everybody's talking about my tight pants. I got my tight pants. I got my tight pants on. Everybody's looking at my tight pants. I got my tight pants. I got my tight pants on.
You got it right there. And so, yeah, she and I did that. It was amazing. And then we did cowbell guy, which I do a little bit of cowbell.
That was my high school yearbook
slogan.
slogan. Is
no way.
I got a lot of
Oh my
fever,
God.
and the only prescription is more cowbell.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
Thank you, Bruce.
Right, exactly. So, but that's a one joke thing, right? The other ones are films. You've got jokes all day long, right? But the cowbell is like, hey, more cowbell, ding, ding, ding. It's like, so it's just so dialed into one joke. You can't really do it at a trade show or, even going to anything. It's just there's not enough there. So, but I know like all the musicians in Kansas City, right, that do rock and roll or any kind of thing, right? And they will have me. They're like, can you come? Where you got a show? We are gonna play, something from Van Halen, or we're gonna play something from whatever song. And they're like, that's the song. And then you just come out doing your cowbell stuff. I should have had that ready for you, man. I'm sorry I didn't have it, but I got the beard, the hair,
I'm deeply
the
heartbroken.
shirt, yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe next time.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I think
but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think my favorite sketch of all time of Will Ferrell is when him and, I forget her name, but they're two professors in this ski resort lodge, and they're in the hot tub with Jimmy Fallon. And I forget their names.
Lovers. I believe they're lovers.
It may seem calm above the waters, but underneath there's a frenzy of activity.
We should mention that although the waters above appear calm, below the surface there is a frenzy of activity.
Exactly. We have thought about doing that one for Halloween, but no, that's, walking around with a hot tub or something. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of, we did this year, we did the cheerleaders.
Oh,
the whatever they're, no,
His beans, they come from Colombia way. He rides on his funky donkey every day.
tried to learn a little bit of something. I don't know.
That's so funny.
But
That's
anyway,
a good point,
so
though,
we'll
is that-
still do Halloween.
Yeah, the fact that you don't have the catalog to go off of for a trade show, but it's enough for a party.
Yeah,
because otherwise you're just
yeah.
pulling from the weeds. You're trying to figure something out off the cuff.
Yeah, well, but I'm good at that. I have found out that I'm a fantastic improv guy. I mean, I can pull a joke right out of thin air, and it'll work, right? I mean, somehow I did that, and I think I never was funny, but I have 4 siblings, right? So I'm like 4th of 5. And the second oldest is my sister Kim, and she was just always hilarious. And I think maybe because she had to diffuse things more often than others, right?
Right.
You know, the oldest one, the oldest sibling has their definite role, right? They got to kind of take care of everybody, and they're kind of in charge, and they, you know, it's got to be kind of stern, whatever. But then the second comes along and says, what the hell? It's a party where, I don't have any responsibility. And so she was just always hilariously funny. And I just always envied that. And I would always try and figure out what she's doing. How does she know to say that thing? Right. And so at some point I did read about comedy and how it happens and why it works psychologically and all that kind of stuff. And that was before I was doing this too. Right. So I thought, well, funny is a science, which blows people's minds, right? But it is. You have to pretty much have a pretty quick mind, honestly. But because you have to. It's got to come out right now. The timing is now, right? There's no other. There's
that was ironic timing for that alarm.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, I thought I turned the thing off, the silence, but it doesn't do alarms. Sorry.
It was reminding you to put Sex Panther on.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't know. Stings the nostrils, but in a good way. Yeah, but anyway, so I had not studied, but I had read about comedy and how it actually works and stuff. So it's really, it's just that unexpected thing. You're going along and boom, some unexpected thing. And
I was going to say, what's interesting about comedy though, this is what I hear, that 60% of the time it works.
Every time.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's about right. That's about perfect.
Have you ever thought about actually getting on stage, either as one of the characters or even as yourself? Like, are you familiar with 𝗗𝗃?
No.
No, I got to send you the link. It's the number one live podcast in the world, I think, and it's a comedy podcast where they're actually on stage. They host it at Joe Rogan's mothership in Austin, Texas. And essentially it's Tony and he usually has different guests every single time, and they sit on a panel and they just pull names out of a hat of just people in the audience that want to be comedians, or they want to, so they'll get 1 minute on stage to, make a name for themselves. And they've created such a universe now, 𝗗𝗃 universe, where like people who are actually making big bucks today on stages, selling out arenas as comedians, started as a bucket pull from the 𝗗𝗃 show. Do you know who Adam Ray is?
They probably started way before that. And then they got there and they thought that's my opportunity. Yeah, and then I'm in a room of 100 people. I got a 1 in 100 chance, that kind of deal. So I totally get that though.
Yeah.
But
do you know who Adam Ray is, the comedian?
I haven't heard of it.
Oh man, I got to send you this. So Adam Ray does, he's one of the guys he's friends with Tony Hinchcliffe, the host of the show. And he's come on to do so many different characters where it's become a thing where he does full Dr. Phil makeup and everything.
I think we've got a real opportunity tonight, Tony, to help some people get better. And I'm fired up. Hey, let's do this.
He came on as Biden, and Shane Gillis, another comedian, came on as Trump, and they're essentially doing Trump and Biden the whole episode as the guests.
Yeah.
Oh my God! You guys. This is an unbelievable moment. Oh, you do not look at Joe Biden. Sit down.
But they're so good at it.
Wow.
And so the show 𝗗𝗃 has almost become like a breeding ground for like character comics or comedians that have different characters kind of in their buckets. That's why I was just thinking, I'm like, because we're talking about comedy.
That's interesting.
How funny would that be if you ended up on the show?
I tell you what, I'm in Austin like 3 or 4 times a year at least, right? Because the track, the Circuit of the Americas Formula One track is there.
Yeah.
And Bobby Epstein, hi Bobby, if you ever see this, he's the chairman and he part owner, and he is my biggest fan. I mean, he loves Ricky Bobby so much. I mean, I'll go there and he's like, yeah, just you do whatever you want to do. Just here's the badge. Just go do whatever you make people happy, just like you do. But come by my tent, which is 3 stories of aluminum structure with some, I mean, it's insane. They're branding
It's a
you a
bunker.
free cowboy hat and making you a Wagyu burger, and here you go, and then like last year I was there, I was like, "So Bobby, he just come by whenever, but make sure he come by." I was giving him a hug, he was giving me a hug, whatever, we're hugging, and I'm like, "Bobby's that Jerry Bruckheimer right behind you?" Yeah, he's just not having a good day. I don't know. Maybe he could use a little comedy, this kind of stuff. And then, and then he's got like Rogan was there this time.
Oh, yeah.
And then Matthew McConaughey was there. And then I kind of made friends with he's one of the top Formula One photographers. So I'm talking about the media people I get to know and see, right? And so the Formula One photographer, I was in the paddock because Bobby will take me down and meet the drivers and put me on stage with Shaq, stuff like that. And and then so Shaq and DJ Diesel, sorry Shaq. So this photographer hits me like this, and I'm like, whatever I do, Ricky Bobby. Yeah, it was like this. Yeah, there you go. Shake and bake. Woo. I was doing one of these things and he goes, and so he takes his picture and then he comes up like, "Okay, what, get my name, whatever." So then he has all these ongoing things. I mean, he's a media conglomerate for Formula One is what he is, all by himself. I don't know. He probably has, I don't know how many people working for him, but he's got just floods of media come out of this guy. Right.
Mhm.
And one of them is, watches of the paddock, and one of them is shoes of the paddock, and one of them is women of the paddock, and one of them is men of the paddock. And then he's got the shot and the video of every single thing. Right. And so I got on his Men of the Paddock in 2022, and I've been on it almost every year since. And I messaged him this year. I told him, I said, "Man, I'm sorry I missed you. I didn't see you anywhere." He goes, "I saw you. I was yelling, but you didn't turn around and see me, whatever." So that's why I'm not one of the Men of the Paddock for 25. But anyway, so in 22, that was the first year, right? And so here's Ricky Bobby. And so they're like, "Here's the people and Men of the Paddock in the Austin race." Right. And so it was a bunch of people. I don't remember exactly who all was in there. And then, some celebrities, if they were there or whatever, this kind of stuff. Right. And then there's always a couple of guys that are working, doing the thing, but there's 10 people in there. Right. 10 women and the women of the paddock, 10 men and the men of the paddock. And so I was one of them, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. That's awesome. Right. And then at the end of that season, he puts out this top 10 Men of the Paddock for all of 2022. So the ones that got liked the most, the pictures that got liked the most,
Mhm.
they come to the top. And here's McConaughey, here's Brad Pitt, here's Sylvester Stallone, here's Tom Cruise, here's I can't think of his name, but he's a redhead guy, modern, plays
Ed Sheeran,
singer-songwriter with Ed Sheeran, and then there's me. And then a couple other people, some Japanese artist guy, whatever. And talk about just crapping your pants. You're like, what in the world? How is that even possible that I'm in this, in this group? But it happened, But
you have made the list, Ricky Bobby.
Here's the deal too. This is really the what I should get across is that that's not me, right? I don't feel like that's me doing that, right? I'm just the guy that sort of gets to pretend to be that guy, right? And that guy is famous. Ricky Bobby is famous, right?
Right.
Will Ferrell is famous. Ron Burgundy is famous. That's famous stuff. And I'm sort of borrowing that for a minute and getting to portray it and continue the legacy sort of in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And so I enjoy doing it. It doesn't give me a big head because I know it's not really me. It's not really me there. It's not like, oh, David was Man of the Paddock, right? And so it's easy to stay really grounded in this deal, right? Because you just go out there and you put the mask on, off you go, And so I think my wife would tell you the same thing. She's like, I'm just more grounded than anybody, but I have all these great stories, right?
Yeah.
Like the Shaq thing. When Shaq is out there doing his DJ thing, there's 100,000 people out there in front of us, and it's just crazy. It's the Formula One, right? And and we're and there's, I mean, Jake Paul or whoever's standing next to me, you know what I mean? These guys are up on stage doing whatever, and there's a big giant box on stage right behind Shaq, a big, you know, I don't know, production box or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm up on top of that thing behind him doing this, right? And then but I'd get down, I'd wander around, I'd wave at people, do whatever, you know, kind of elbow Shaq a little bit. And then Shaq will be keeping, and everybody's out there thumping. And then Shaq will put on like some early 70s R&B kind of thing. And the level of the crowd, it just goes, just like you said, there's people that don't know Ricky Bobby, right? There's people that don't know, you know, Marvin Gaye.
Sure. Yeah.
Or
yeah.
whatever. Some, you know, these guys from the 70s that were like smooth talking.
Another person
smooth
I portrayed
singing
in a church
love
play.
songs.
Bruh.
I'm kidding.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. But it just does, the vibe just goes like this, right? And literally the producer twice in that same show goes, Ricky Bobby, go, right? I'm like, oh, so I got to run. So I'm run out in the front of the stage, run around high-fiving, woo, shaking my helmet around, just trying to get the, you know, the energy back up, because Shaq just lost it, right? And sorry, Shaq, you know, it's true.
Yeah.
But I mean,
All love.
yeah, so that's crazy stuff too. But it's, again, it's just, I just get to do the coolest stuff. But again, realize it's not me necessarily, right?
Sure.
When I'm at a trade show, though, let's get over to trade show now. When I'm at a trade show, the initial part is borrowed, right? I borrowed the face, like, hey, can I borrow your face? Will, you know, I'm gonna borrow your face, borrow your outfit. And now I'm kind of Will Ferrell standing there, right? And so they come in, they're like, and across the room, people think could be, you know, that could be Will Ferrell standing there doing the thing, right? And then they get closer and like, I don't think so. I don't think it is. But man, that guy, you know, this is kind of what I've learned over time. And then when they get up close, I'm just going, woo, shake a bang, what the hell are you doing here, Margie? You know, whatever. And they're like, oh, we got to get a picture, you know. But at the show, my job is to already have figured out from the client, what is the question and what is the answer, right? So I got 2-3 seconds to try and stay in character, try and keep the energy up, get him in this photo. And then, what are you doing at the show? Kind of question. You know, what are you looking for at the show? Kind of. And so, and I'm really good at it, man. I nail it. I know exactly. It takes me, you know, a couple of minutes to figure that out with the clients. We just sit and talk about it a little bit, and then they will say, well, it's this. You know, we need people who have their own auto body shop, you know, or we have people who have their own insurance agency or independent agents, or, you know, whatever it is, you know, people, they have their own little niche, and that's what they're looking for, you know. So everybody selling at a trade show. I don't know, people out there know what a trade show is. I think most people do, but some people don't. But it's just a bunch of businesses in a little table, essentially. Some tables are bigger than others, but, you know, these people at our table, and somebody is coming to that show to try and decide if they're the one they need to work with for some future project, or to hire for marketing or whatever it is, right? And so each show is different, but I can figure that out, and I can get that done, and then I can typically bring that guy, one of their closers. I call them closers because they're, you know, they're the salespeople, or they're the, you know, management of the company or whatever. And I like kind of jokingly, hey, Margie, man, this is Joe. Hey, Joe, come here and take this picture. Margie, you'll never guess. Margie has her own shop. You know, Margie is this or that, you know. And so the guy will come over, he's taking the picture. Now we're in this comedy moment, all three of us together, or sometimes more people, right? And then now I brought the closer in. Now he's in on the joke. Now he's here in the conversation, and she's just as happy with him as she is with me, right? And then, oh my gosh, look at this picture. Look at this. Oh my God. Hey, be sure and tag us in that. And, oh, hey, you want to do a video and send to the kids, you know, this kind of stuff. And so it's just a moment that once we know for sure that they're potential lead. And that's what
Right.
you're looking for, like somebody to follow up with and, do some business with. And so then we take an extra minute with them, whatever. And then another cultural reference here, once they kind of get in the conversation, I'm like Homer in the bushes, right? I'm just like, I'm Homer Simpson, like going into the bushes. I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. And then, somebody else needs a photo, right? And then I'll go there. And those people are just happy and talking, and they're already halfway to signing the deal because
no, it's
they're
genius.
now that guy is, that guy's he's a friend of mine because we know Ricky Bobby. We just did this picture. We're already happy. We're already laughing. And then guess what? If you do need to follow up, or when you do need to follow up, these guys follow up. It's like, hey, I got another picture of you and Ricky. Do you want to see it? Right. Or it's like, what'd you think of our Ricky Bobby? Was that crazy? Was that, you know what I mean? And then they're taking that call, or they're responding to that email or whatever. It's just such a trigger to make that happen. And I'll just tell you, I've done so many trade shows for so many businesses. There's nobody doing it, right? There's a few people that will have, we hired the little Vegas gals with the feathers, right? And that's kind of passe. You don't see that too much anymore. And then you would sometimes in Vegas, I mean, I think I've only seen it once myself, but I've heard of it in the past where they would have like an Elvis impersonator there, and people were kind of excited about that. But I don't think anybody is that excited to see an Elvis impersonator anymore, honestly, unless they're that demographic.
Sure.
And so my demographic is typically people, it's usually men, most of them at trade shows. It's usually men they could be young, they could be in their 20s or even college, and they know all the stuff, right? They know any Ricky Bobby or Ron Burgundy stuff.
Yeah.
The gals certainly know Buddy the Elf, but they have to be typically a little bit older to be getting the Ron Burgundy and the Ricky stuff, right? They got to be maybe in their 30s or something, where they've been around enough to sort of see those memes come around and whatever. But it works fantastic. I mean, it works fantastic. It's just something that I figured out, and there's nobody else doing it at these shows. I've seen a few different tricks that they do. And honestly, when I'm at trade shows, and I apologize again to the audience if this is your guy at your trade show, 90% of people at trade shows are phoning it in. I mean, to them, it's a paid vacation to go get drunk at night with a couple of potential clients or their existing clients, and then they're showing up late to the booth, and then they're not even trying. They're sitting there on their phone all day. They're doing something, and some of them have told me, I've heard it, that, well, I'm glad we have you here because then I don't have to really, I don't have to talk to people, and that's just like, well, that's too bad that's how you think, because this is how you make your money. But I did see this one guy. I was working for Chevron, and it was at a Napa auto parts sort of show, right? And Chevron just had me because they could. Kind of. They just didn't want, it was almost like they didn't want anybody else to have me at some point, right? Because they don't need me to get them business, right? They're Fortune 5 or whatever. Fortune 3 something. They do not need me to sell oil for them, right? They just didn't want anybody else to have me, and they knew what would happen. And so couple of quick stories on that. One of them was, I was in a smallest booth possible. It's 10 foot by 10 foot with a table, right? 2 or 3 guys, Chevron. And across from us was a 20 foot by at least 40. I don't know how far back it went. Massive. Like they spent, possibly multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars just to put that in there, not to mention the space, not to mention being a show, a promoter for the show. Paying the extra fee to be in all the other media and stuff. And so I was just sitting there doing my thing, woo, and I was able to capture almost all the attention, right? As people came around this corner and up this aisle, nobody looked over there. Very few people did. And they had big old, like, sim racing. They had NASCAR sim racing over there. Nobody played it the whole time, right? It was 3 days. It was 3 days of this show. And it was my job to make sure that people were talking about TechCron, right? And we're talking about, Chevron stuff. And so I was just just working it hard, right? But late in the second day, my marketing guy at Chevron, he goes, oh my God, that is the president of Chevron just walked into that booth over there. And I'm like, well, it's already cranked to 10, so we're going to 11. That's all there is to it, right? It's just not, they're not, and they did have a few people come over there, but it was more like people that were already scheduled to have a meeting with them. They were in town. They knew they were going to be there, that kind of stuff. And, which happens a lot. And so, but I just worked it hard, made sure I was like catching the attention as people came right around that corner to see us. Right. And at the end of the show, at the end of the third day, that guy, the president of Chevron, or the president of, I think it was, I can't remember for sure which oil company it was but it wasn't Chevron, but one of the other big names, the name, everybody knows the name, and he came over to our booth. I mean, we're talking about the president of the company, right? And this is Vegas, massive show. He comes over and he goes, I just got to shake your hand because you killed us. Right. And I'm in this little tiny 10 by 10 booth that costs maybe a few $1,000 to rent this space, and, maybe another couple $100 worth of banners. Right. And then me. And I took down Goliath. Right. Took down Goliath, but Goliath was kind enough to come over to me and say, man, you killed us, and shook my hand. And then he looks at my guy and he knows him. He was like, oh, hey, man, I don't know what you got going here, but it's awesome, whatever. And then he goes, by the way, can I get a picture? Can I get, and I'm like, Doug, can we do a picture? He's like, yeah, well, and then they kind of like, well, not in the Chevron booth. That wouldn't be good. Not in the booth. Just, maybe out here in the aisle. Like, okay. So they work out a deal. Right. So here I am out here shaking hands with the guy from the other oil company, but I still got a Techron patch right here, but that was definitely David and Goliath situation. I've done it many times, but I did have one of the guys that does work shows like that, trade shows, and he's done it for, I think 40 years is what he told me, but he's a magician. Danny Orleans. Hey, Danny. And, he's super good. Blew my mind. I was just like, I can't believe that there's someone here that is taking attention off of me, off of my booth. Because my job here is to win this thing, and they all have to be looking at me. And he's right across in a much bigger booth again, doing the thing for another big oil company. And but the problem was he'd get them all at like 25 people at a time. And then when he's done with his magic show, they're all shoved into the booth at the same time. Well, they don't have 25 closers in there. They don't have 25 people that can go, honey, it's nice to meet you. Where do you, which parts store do you manage?
So they
and
kind of
do you
trickle
sell
off
how
and they
much of
lose
my
some.
product can I? Exactly. So you can't, that was the problem with it. And I could see it. And I was trying to work out in my head, why would they even do that? But he was an impressive guy. And then lo and behold, he walked over at some point to me on my side later in the show or the next day or something. And he started telling me, I've seen Marilyn Monroe impersonators and Elvis impersonators. I've seen people, the showgirls. I've seen everybody do it for the last 40 years. And I've never seen anybody like you. I've never seen anybody that worked, and you call out their names, because I'll spot their name on their name tag, right? And I'll act like I already know them, or whatever. And so he just went on, and when he started it, somehow I had my phone in my hand, and I just clicked the video record, and I got it right down here in my hand, and I'm recording, and he at some point, he's like, oh, and I'm like, keep going. So he went ahead and he just gave me one of the best reviews you could ever ask for. But
I love it.
He said, he's never seen anything like what I do. And I just came up with it. Nobody taught me how to do it. I've been to a few trade shows before the act kind of came around. So I knew what trade shows were and whatever. But then my marketing background, my acting, whatever, all this kind of stuff, you just put it all together, and that's what happened. So I get really great response. Just that. And just one more, since I can't stop talking about it, and long enough for you to even get a question in, I'll just answer the next question. Yes, I've had people I literally have had a guy at a show show up and he booked the show late. His materials did not show up, his banners and signs and whatever, but he had some products right there that he brought with him or something. And I was just showing up and I'm like, oh, dang, he's at the far end of the trade show in the lower floor in Vegas, like in one of the buildings. There's multiple buildings way in the back, like 5% of the people are even going to get there to that far, that back, or they're going to look down that aisle and go, it looks like nothing, and they're going to turn around or go to the next aisle. Right. That's just how it's going to work. And as soon as I got there, I was talking to him. We are kind of getting ready. Okay, got to do some stuff. Got to, this is going to be a tough one, right, for me, because how am I going to do it? I got to be down here like pulling people, and I'm eyeballing people, catching their eye. Woo, shake a bake, get on down here. Yeah, I got your picture right here, And but then all of a sudden, this middle-aged man, middle-aged woman come kind of jogging down. And they said, oh my gosh, I found you. We found you. We've been chasing. We saw you halfway across the building. We have to get a picture. Right. And I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Heck yeah, let's get a picture. And then what are you doing at the show? Hey, Josh, come take this picture. Oh, well, we're buyers for a big retail chain in the Southeast. Right. And I'm like, oh, do you buy stuff like this? Like, as a matter of fact, we do. That's exactly kind of one of the things we're looking for. I'm like, hey, Josh, here, take this picture. Guess what? They're buyers for blah, blah. And so when they're done, that whole thing I just told you, and they're over there talking, and they were over there talking for about an hour. And then they're leaving. We're going to send, John over. He'll be by sometime today. He's here too, but we're going to send him over to talk to you, whatever. And then this guy, John or whatever, comes by and he talks to him for an hour. Right. And then he's leaving. He goes, okay, we're all going to come back tomorrow. We're going to have, and they literally, all three of them came back the next day. They were doing the deal like that. They all left. And he goes, that's about a 2-year deal. That's going to be about $20 million.
Sheesh.
And yeah. And so I was just like, woo, that's how it works. You know what I mean? And I've heard a lot of, anecdotal, like, oh, you doubled our sales, you tripled our sales, best show in 30 years. I mean, every single time. I mean, if somebody's watching this who doesn't know what they're going to do at the next trade show, call me and I'll give you a whole bunch of superlatives that you're going to regurgitate back to me at the end of your show. And I will tell you, and it's a guarantee, I'll guarantee it. It happens every single time. So that's just how it works. I mean, it's kind of amazing, but I don't have any qualms about saying that because I know exactly what I do and I know exactly how it works.
Yeah, David, if you take any, if I can lend any advice to you, if you don't already do this, I think you need to start negotiating a percentage of sales over the next, 3 weeks post show, because I think you'd be rolling in the dough just from a little, like.
Can you be 2%. My agent on that? I'll give you a little tiny slice of the slice, if you'll do that for me, because I tell you, I've thought about it so many times. There's just almost no way to make that happen. I mean, honestly, I wish that could happen.
Almost is not,
but even then,
never.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right. But what happens is people don't know what's going to happen and they're gambling anyway. And they're gambling, it's some thousands of dollars, right? Just to have me show up. Right. So I'm going to show up, but they're like, yeah, but they don't really know. Right. Because I'm not taking video. I'm not doing social media for myself at these things. So when they say, well, how do I know you're going to show me a video that you do? Well, I do have one or two sort of kind of that somebody else shot. And they've given me the usage of, right. But they still don't show what I'm telling you. Right. And so when people see it, they're like, it's kind of a gamble. I don't know. Might be kind of lowbrow. I'm not sure. There's a lot of things that go through people's heads and it's, I understand. I mean, you have a brand to deal with, you have brand standards and different things. And I totally get it. But I also totally get that if you don't try it, you're making a mistake.
Yeah.
Just flat out, period. That's just a fact. So I have like this year, I've already got shows lined up this year, and most of them are shows from people I did last year. You know, like a guy that said I 10x'd his expectation from the show, you know, or one from a gal that I got 3 months after the show saying, oh my God, we're still working through all the projects and all the stuff that came from that show. It's unreal. We got to schedule the next one. It's 9 months from now. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And that's how it works. And I tell people stuff that they kind of think I might be lying or making up or whatever. Like, do you want to be the hero in your company, or do you not want to be the hero in your company? You know, do you want to be the next director of marketing, or do you just want to stay like an associate? You know, I mean, that's on you. You know, I mean, I know the path. I know exactly what it is. I've done it for so many people already, you know, and it at some point you just go, well, that's cocky, you know, and my wife is somebody that will tell me not to get cocky. But also what they say is, you know, it ain't bragging if it's true. Right. So, and I've got people all day long that we can put you on the phone with, or I can send you reviews, that kind of stuff. That'll be like, yeah, you got to do it. You got to try it. And I tell people like right away, because I'm the marketing guy. I'm a branding guy. I'm a creative director, right? I know, I mean, I built lines of products, you know, standards and all this stuff. So I always tell them, like, they immediately want to all get Ron Burgundy shirts or 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁𝗕 jackets or something, or hats, or, you know, they all want to be 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁𝗕 now, you know, or they want to have a big banner in the back that's 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁𝗕 something or Ron Burgundy something. And I'm like, stop. No, you are a professional. You have brand standards. You need to stick to that. You know, you need to be the professional. You let me be the knucklehead, because I know how to turn the knucklehead into cash money, right? But you, when they come to your booth, they came to see the knucklehead. They don't want to also see that you're a knucklehead, right? They want you to be the professional. You are the professional. You are the mortgage guy. You are the insurance guy. You are the you know, you're the top guy in the field. You're not being the knucklehead. Yeah, we just hired this guy to come in and be a knucklehead, right? But we're the professionals. That's how it has to play. And people just don't really get it. You know, a lot of times they're like, oh no, we need to change the whole thing into a big Ron Burgundy push. Are you selling Ron Burgundy? Is that what your business is? Are you selling Ron Burgundy? Are you selling 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁𝗕? Do you somehow commoditize that? No, you didn't. No, it's not a thing, right? That's not what you're selling. You let me handle getting people into the booth and get them hot, warm leads in your hands. Get them all figured out. And I tell people it's a lot like those gold shows. I don't know if you have seen these shows, but they're you know, like on History Channel or something. There's a guy, they got bulldozers out here in the wilderness, and they're taking mountains apart, and it's dirt and wood and rocks and all kind of stuff. Well, that's sort of the way I look at this thing, right? I have to get everybody in that booth. Everybody at this show has to be in this booth, and I have to talk to them, and I have to figure out what they are doing. I have to figure out if there's an ounce of gold there, or if there's a nugget, or if there's a little tiny piece or something. That's my job right there, right? And then hand it over to you, and you run it through the thing and see if it's gold at the end of the day, right? And the rest of the guys, yeah, exactly, do the pan, whatever. But the rest of them are the stuff that washes out the other end. That's fine. That's I take a picture. What are you here for? Well, my sister came and she brought me some tickets and said there was free drinks. I'm like, okay, fantastic. Woo, let's take a picture, 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁𝗕. Hey, tag me. See you later. Have a good time. Come back later if you want to do it again. Right? Boom, done. Out. That's the stuff washing out the end of the pan, right? But the gold is over here with these guys, and they're you know, they're figuring at the end of the day, all it has to be is a pan full of gold.
Yeah.
You don't care about what went out the other end. So that's the
David,
analogy.
Our plan for this 2026 year is you reach out to previous, not employers, but what do you call them? Contractors, I guess, that have hired you for shows. See if they have metrics for you. If not, I would say going into every trade show this year, ask them what their metrics previously after a trade show was, and then compared to your current ones. And then you and I will find a plan where we can, if your fee is, whatever your fee is, $10K for the weekend or something, then $10K plus 5% of all sales, for the next, I would say the next calendar month after the trade show, is your new negotiated fee based on, hey, look, for the last 5 shows I did, we averaged 16% increase in revenue per show based on my appearance. So I want 5% of that increase, 16%, and bring me in, and here's my fee. There you go. We got our game plan for the new year.
It's a deal. All right. Put something together, and we'll send me an agreement that says what you're. I think you just offered to help, is what I think. So if you want to get in on that, we can do it.
I for sure want to get on.
It's one of
that.
those things where if it's one of those things where it should be that way, but then we got to get more past. We got to get outside the marketing department. We got to get all the way to CEO and whatever. And the ones that want to do it again, I'm honestly sometimes just happy to do it for them again. You know what I mean? But I should probably try and figure out a better way. But I don't know. You know what I mean? Nobody teaches you how to do it. I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe, hey, if somebody's listening, give me a call besides you, and we'll put our heads together, and maybe there is a way to do that. But I'm not. Here's the deal. I might have been on a list with Tom and Brad and those guys, right? But I don't have an agent that is a Tom level agent, right?
Yeah.
So if I had a Tom level agent and we could do something like that, that'd be fantastic, because it's exactly how it works. But all of my clients aren't really, Chevron and whatever. They're probably fairly smaller stuff a lot of the time.
Sure.
And they, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know how that would ever work, but I would love to explore that, because even one $20 million deal will kind of take care of the rest.
That's what I'm saying.
And
we'll figure it out
there.
We'll brainstorm after this.
All right, that sounds perfect.
I'll reach out to some folks.
I didn't realize this was going to be as entrepreneurial as it is. It's fantastic.
It's called the Connector for a reason, my friend.
There you go. Perfect.
I'll figure something out. I like this. Okay, so David, I want to, because I know we're at like an hour 20 now. I appreciate your time so much, man. I do want to talk about one more thing, because I want to see you. I want to see you light up a little bit more than you already have been, because I want to talk about your wife a little bit. Now, I know she's obviously a big part of this, the traveling, makeup, art, like she does all this stuff with you. Tell me, because actually, you know what? Talk to me like a son figure. I'm 30. I'm single. I'm not married yet. I'd like to be, and I want to find my person. I want to find my partner that is my partner in crime.
Wow.
Wants to grow with me. Travel with me, do cool things. Not someone who's just not interested in all my ambitions. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe my life takes me into being a Will Smith impersonator.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
I don't know why. Apparently, I'm destined for African American impersonations.
I'll put the website together. and do the SEO. I'm sure we'll get you some work.
Yeah. But no, I'm teasing. But you know what?
So
I don't know where my life is going
is
to take me. So I'd love to know. Yeah, how important is you think having the right partner in this adventure?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. Let's back up to 2008 when I had a different wife and I had a different business, and I owned a magazine. And I was, all of those things for that magazine, right? And she was editor, I was editor, this kind of stuff. And it was like, honestly, I was working 2 or 3 hours a day. I'd be at the pool, like there's a pool across the street in the neighborhood, like for an hour at lunch. I mean, my life was pretty cush, right? Pretty sad, big ass house, apologies, but yeah, lots and lots of bedrooms, lots of stuff, kids were still pretty young, whatever, the whole shoot match. Right. And then of course, things changed. So she decided that she was going to strike out on her own, right? And so she was able to do some stuff that took that company down, took that house down, took the whole thing down. At the simultaneously 2008, 2009 sort of crash comes along, right? And so everything just went to the bottom, like to minus zero. It was shocking that somebody that you had trusted could do this kind of stuff. And then I had 2 kids. They were about, somewhere, 2008 to whatever. They were like 12 to 15 or 12, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in those ranges. And during those years. And at some point they just came to me and said, you know what? We're not going back to crazy town. Right. And so now I'm a single dad with 2 teenage kids. My business is gone. My house is gone, all the way down, like minus zero, right? Below zero, a long ways below zero. And so I had read a book from Dean Kamen, I think. You know who I'm talking about? He does a lot of stuff with Tony.
Dean Graziosi?
Dean Graziosi, that's what it is. Yeah, that's what it was. I had read a book at some point because when I bought, not that house, but the house before, I never used a real estate agent, right? So I told people that I'm just going to sell this house. And I'm going to sell it for whatever I decide to sell it for, not what the agent's going to say it's worth or anybody else. So I'd have my own open house, this kind of stuff, whatever. And so I went through 3 or 4 houses. Kids kind of got mad at me because every 3 years or so we'd be in a different house or whatever. But I had 10 acres, ponies for the kids, the whole bit when they were, 5, 6, 7 years old, doing this kind of stuff. And so now I had just sold this house and I moved into this one that I ended up losing because the business went down and everything else. But I sold this house to somebody that wanted to buy a house, but they couldn't sell their own house. So at that time, I just said, well, I need you to, you're contracted to buy my house and your contract is, it's a 30-day deal. We got to get this closed in the next couple of weeks, right? But you haven't sold your house. I need to help you look at your house to see what we're going to do with your house. See how this can work out because I need you to sell your house just like you do so you can get this house. And so, yeah, whole nother story. Hope you got a few more minutes and you don't have to go somewhere. But, and so what happened was I went to my mortgage guy and I said, you know what? They're not going to be able to sell their house. I went over to their house and I looked and they needed paint. They needed cleaning up. They needed get junk out of there and get it kind of decent looking so that, it looked like a decent place. And it was 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath or something, typical little, maybe 1,100 square feet or something. Right. And I said, you got to do some stuff. They're like, we just can't, we're just not we can't do it. We got to have this price. And you're not going to get you're not getting that price. And then I'm not going to sell my house, which my price was way over what I had paid for that thing 3 years before. Right. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to get my price then. And I'm sure I know real estate enough because now I've got 5 properties right now. Right. And so I got, which all came along in the last few years too, by the way. But this was 2003, I think. And I said, you know what? I called my mortgage guy. I'm like, I'm going to have to buy his house at the price he's asking for it so that he has enough money to buy my house at the price I'm asking for it. Right. And so in the deal, I'm going to come out okay. Right. Because if I pay a little high over there, I'm making a lot more on here doing it. Right. And so my mortgage guy's like, took care of it, right? So now I have a rental property essentially. And so that rental property I had when the whole world collapsed in 2008 and 9, right? I still had my Corvette and I had my rental property. And so what I did was, did you do that?
No, it's the
I don't know.
Animations for if you put your fingers up a certain way. Wait for it.
Okay, I didn't know. Anyway, so yeah, so anyway, but the Dean, back to the Dean Graziosi book, he had said stuff, this can happen, right? This kind of stuff. And so what I did was I also didn't want to move my kids over to that neighborhood into that part of town to where that different school and everything, right? So I went and found another house that was for sale by owner and I went and got that talked that property guy into doing a purchase, rent to buy kind of thing. I said, I'm going to take over your mortgage, like a sub-2 kind of, sometimes they call it, right? So I'm going to take over your property, and I'm going to take over the mortgage and whatever, this kind of stuff. And so I did, but I didn't catch it up. I didn't realize it was so far behind. So I was keeping it okay, but it was still so far behind. So literally the month my daughter graduated, my youngest graduated from high school, the same high school I was able to keep her in, the mortgage company said, look, we're gonna give you $3,000 to clean the place up and get out, because it has never been up, it's been way behind for way too long, and we're just gonna, we got to do something. So we cleaned it up, took the money, got out of there, and went and moved into my rental property that I had, right? Which I had not set foot in 10 years, because I would always tell the next person, 2, 3 years later, I'm like, yeah, I haven't been able to get over there and clean it up. But if you want to put a coat of paint on and clean it up yourself, I'll let you in without the security deposit or half price or whatever, and I would do something, and they would just go in and do it. So I had never been in the property in 10 years. So it was not in great condition.
What's
so
a little
anyway,
asbestos?
That's the first. Yeah. So when I met my wife, that's right in that process there of moving into that crappy rental property, right? And so she had been through a divorce, had lost everything. I had been through divorce, lost everything. So we're both at 0 or below, right? And so when you fall in love with somebody and you're already a billionaire, there's gonna probably be some thoughts in your head about, I wonder if this is real. You know what I mean? And so there were no thoughts like that. Right. This is like, at the end of the week, I might scrape enough together to, take us out for a burger, that kind of stuff. I mean, it was like really, really bad. And I ended up working 3 jobs at the same, 3 jobs just to get by there for a while. It was just pretty crazy. And so she was working, and then so she moved in, and we ended up getting married while we lived in that house, but we were kind of remodeling it as we went, right? That kind of stuff. And she was always like, oh, we got to find a better place than this. This can't be the end of the line. I know you had this big house before, so did we. And, she's very encouraging, but it kind of felt kind of demanding at times, just because I was shell shocked. I mean, I was brutally PTSD shell shocked from what I had gone through. And I'm like, I own this thing. It hasn't gone anywhere. I have it. I'm going to get it paid off, and it's okay. I'm going to be solid. Right. And so the reality was that she didn't believe that. She's like, no, I've seen what you did before. You can do it again, and we can do it together, and it'll be great. And we'll have, and so at that point we worked on the house. We fixed it up. It was brand new on the inside at some point, and then the market changed a little bit, and we were able to refinance it and take some money out of it. Right. So I got some money out of it, and then I went on auction.com and looked for houses that were in the same condition as mine was when I moved in, quite frankly, or worse, and then I found a little house, and it was in a pretty good area, but somebody had left it vacant for a while, and this and that. And I was able to, pick it up super cheap. So we went in there all in, went over there and fixed it up too, kind of in the meantime, right? Any spare time we had, we were like painting, sanding floors, fixing the trim, doing this kind of stuff. And so then we got another rental property going, right? And then I don't remember exactly how it went, but that was that was probably 6-7 years ago when we got to that. And then now we kind of done the same thing a bunch of times. And now I've got 3 properties in Kansas City that I own and that I rent, that I have no money in, because I bought them cheap, fixed them up to a certain level, and then refinanced at the current appraisal, right? And took 75% of that money back out and paid myself back, and whoever I borrowed the money from to fix it up, to buy it and fix it up. So I have no money of my own in them, but I've got at least 25% equity in all of them. And I have cash flow on all of them. That's 3 of them in Kansas City. I do that way. And then the house that we live in, we actually bought at an auction site because I was looking for another one to buy. And my wife, I said, "Oh, babe, look at this one. This is a cool one. It's probably too big to turn into a rental or whatever." And she looks at it and she goes, "That's my dream house." And oh my gosh, if you've ever seen like the old Miracle on 34th Street movies or whatever, where the little girl said Santa said she was going to get that movie, and that's her house. She knows the house. It's the house. That's exactly what my wife did. She goes, "No, that's my house. That's it. That's exactly what it's my dream house." I'm like, "Ooh, we got to get it then. Somehow we got to try." So it was an auction. And I remember she was somewhere out driving around when that auction came to close. And I was like, we were still at maybe half of what it was worth, in the condition it was in. And I had never been inside of it, but I knew that there was a brand new air conditioner outside that was probably, it was the biggest air conditioner you've ever seen in a residential property.
Right.
And so I was like, well, they might have had some money. Grandma went to the rest home, but somebody had some money here. They fixed stuff up and they did it right. And so I remember she was on the phone and I was like, here she comes down here right now. Do you want to get on the call, babe? And so I'm on the phone with her and I'm like, we're at this level. We're right here. This is our cutoff. This is our cutoff right here. This is what we said we'd go to. And there's a guy that he just hit me. It's just a little bit over. It's just me and this one guy.
2,000 over, I think.
2,000 over, she just said. And is that what we ended up paying for? 2,000 over. So she was right at our line anyway. So I'm like, babe, do we go? Do we keep going? Do we stay in it? And she's on the phone, goes, just go one more, just go a couple thousand more up, And so I did, and that little timer goes tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
Ding. You're the winner, right? And I'm like, babe, we just got the house. And she just absolutely freaked out and panicked and whatever. And guess what? I still had my house that I was living in, which was that rental. So immediately I had to sell that house and get all the money I could out of it to put down on this. So it was like another month of chaos of trying to get one house sold and one house bought and get this auction site to kind of delay so you just stick your neck out, one of those stick your neck out things again. But anyway, now it's an amazing property. We call it Archway Cottage, and we rent it out for films and venue events, and the movies have been shot here.
Nice.
And Netflix has shot a TV episode here. ABC News flew somebody into Kansas City, drove them to our house, filmed the interview, and then took them back to the airport. That kind of stuff. And so, and then at some point we were down I was Buddy the Elf. I was in Tampa Bay at some convention or something. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get a couple days down at an Airbnb down in Bradenton or Anna Maria Island. And, because we're already this far down, we're just going to spend a couple days at the beach. And so we go down there, and on the way down, we're riding in this, I guess an Airbnb a Uber or something. And, I'm like, babe, what if there's a house down here, like along the beach somewhere that's all beat up? We could buy it, fix it up, and, have a house down here. Might as well. It's the same thing, right? It's gotta be the same thing, kind of. And so we got to thinking it. And then as soon as we pulled up 2-3 houses away, there's this house that hasn't been upgraded, hasn't had anything done in 50, 60 years, but it's cinder block, one floor, and then it's wood frame on top of that. It's got a deck out front. You can see the ocean, all this kind of stuff. And so we got into this. I called some guys, some hard money guys and lenders I know, and we're on the phone with these people trying to get them to take an offer. And I couldn't make it happen. But it was a shot at it. But then my encouraging wife, my wife who thinks I can do anything, basically, she's very encouraging and slightly demanding. Like, no, you can do it, and you probably should. it's not going to kill us, right? Anyway, she kept encouraging. So, and then I don't know, a couple months later, I found a property in Miramar Beach, Florida. It's not on the beach. It's a couple blocks off the beach, but it's like pure tourist area and the most beautiful beach you could ever imagine, like right between Destin and 30A. And it's stunning, amazing water, beautiful place. And bingo, somehow I pulled my guys and my resources together, and I bought an Airbnb down there. So now we've got these five properties, and we do, and I've got some unique, interesting strategies on how to make money with them that are paying off and paying off really well, quite frankly.
Awesome.
And so that's kind of a whole nother angle of stuff that's going on right now. So anyway, some of that stuff that when it dings, my phone dings through like that, I don't know if you can see, but Airbnb, something about Airbnb coming in and, whatever, some travel stuff. We got to go to New York City. Not tomorrow night. I have a charity event tomorrow night. I just got back from Chicago. I had an event in Chicago and one in Buffalo the last couple of days. I just got back.
Cool.
I got a charity. I was at the zoo, Kansas City Zoo. I had a good gig there yesterday, and then I got a charity thing. Because why not go be Buddy the Elf for a bunch of young unwed mothers and all the kids, that kind of stuff. It's just something. We do a lot of charity stuff, a lot of stuff for charities.
Love that.
And then and that's back to New York City, and I have five events in 5 days, and people are trying to squeeze extra ones in there. So if they're gonna, if they got the money, they can have it. But 5 events in 5 days is probably enough. So yeah, and then we got some friends meeting us up there, so it'll be a fantastic time.
That's cool, man. It sounds like you guys are living the dream, although not probably the dream you expected, but it's the dream you have. And I think sounds amazing. Honestly, I love how multifaceted you are. That's why when we first met, I was like, hey, sure, can we have fun talking about some of this impersonator stuff? Yeah. But I think you are just a very interesting man, period. I know maybe David didn't make the what was the list of with the Formula One?
The top 10. Yeah.
But hey,
yeah, right.
Hey,
the men of the paddock.
Technically, you are in a top 20 list. You are in
my picture was there.
My first 20 episodes of this podcast as David Babcock. So you made a top 20 list. There you go.
Right on. Heck yeah.
But okay,
That's
so David,
can you push me to the top if I
Yes, definitely push to the top. So I have one final very important question for you. But before I ask you, where can people find you?
Okay.
What's the best way for them to interact with you? Whether they're a corporate entity that wants to hire you or somebody that wants to reach out to, for any reason.
Well, you know what? You can search Will Ferrell Impersonator and you'll find me. I'm all of those. That's all of me. So there's nobody else really doing it. There were a few guys doing it before I was doing it. And honestly, one of them could do the voice like an impressionist, like exactly perfect. And I really don't do that as not as well as those guys. But they didn't really look like it. You know what I mean? And if you're going to be Ron Burgundy, and people are going to see you down the aisle, they have to know that that's Ron Burgundy. There's no question, right?
Right.
So I have the face, but so nobody does it anymore. So if you search Will Ferrell Impersonator, you will find me. But then there's also, if you're very specific about how you want the show to go, you could find me at ronburgundyimpersonator.com, rickybobbyimpersonator.com, buddytheelfimpersonator.com. Search for, a lot of stuff like that. Any of that stuff, you'll find me.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I would love to do more. I got actually I took a buyout at my job. I had a full-time job until about 2 weeks ago, Josh.
Congrats. I know last time we talked, you were still working there.
Now, and I took it and I'm out. And so now I've got a lot more time to do a lot more shows, maybe buy a few more properties, come up with some more stuff, maybe start something else, maybe start a podcast. No, I'll just be on yours anytime you need me, buddy.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, man. I love it. Everybody go follow his stuff. I got to tell you real quick, by the way, I one of my first early business ventures, as I was, becoming this internet entrepreneur and trying to figure my stuff out, I learned about the fact that you could just buy domains and then big companies would potentially pay you if they want to buy it from you. So I bought 𝗗𝗶𝘃𝗵𝗁.org. I bought Walmart.net, or, whatever was available.
Right.
And I thought, this is genius. I'm going to make so much money, until shortly after I get contacted by 𝗗𝗶𝗃 Corporate. And I was like, that's it. It's my big shot. For like a cease and desist. They were like, you need to transfer this domain immediately or we will submit like serious legal action against you. And I was like, what do you mean? But I thought this was a thing I could do. Anyway, so I learned very quickly. It's not illegal, but it's frowned upon, and it's called domain squatting. So if I really wanted to like get a lawyer, I could probably win that, but I was 22, super broke. Like I'm scared. I don't want to get sued by 𝗗𝗶𝗃.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's my domain story for you. But
yeah, that's fine. I own a bunch of domains myself. And because when I started buying them for Anchorman and 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗁 and whatever, I've got all kinds of stuff like that. But I've just picked up a bunch along the way too of other ones that I thought. And it's not like I went after somebody's specific company. And I'll just tell you this, I had a patent at one point.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I had my magazine, I did all the copyright stuff, right? And for the company that I just left, I did all the trademark stuff, right? Because all these new brands and all these new names and really one new brand and then all the names for the products, right? It's all trademark. You have to get everything trademark, really, or you want to. And so I know, that's a whole nother story. If you got another time, I'll talk about trademarks, copyrights, and getting a patent and going single-handedly against your own lawyer to win his percentage of your patent back after he screwed me with the whole, it's a whole long story, man. A whole long story. That patent was this close to being the product of the week, the product of the century. Wow. But they kind of screwed me and they messed up my deal. So whole nother story. We can get into that sometime.
All right. That's content for the next episode. I'm excited. So my final question for you to wrap this up, because everybody wants to know, have you met Will Ferrell yet?
Yeah. Has a whole nother story. I don't know how much time you're going to. But I tell you what, here it is. Talk about your wife, right? Talk about my wife. She's a doll, and it's a Friday night. We're laying in bed, and she's like, "I wonder what Will Ferrell's doing right now." And in most households, that's a really odd question, And I'm like, I don't look it up, see what's going on. She goes, "Oh my gosh, babe, he's going to be at the Staples Center tomorrow night as Anchorman." Doing color commentary for the Kings.
He dribbles, he skates up the ice and says, "Shot on goal! He scores! Put that baby to bed without a diaper."
I looked at her, I'm like, "What?" And she looked at me like, "Go book the flight, babe." And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." Right? And so I went to StubHub, I got tickets, and I went to Expedia, got my plane, my hotel. I was there the next day. I got in. I was looking around. I saw some cheerleaders. They worked there. And I went right up to them and I said, "Where is the sportscaster's booth? Because Will Ferrell's going to be there and I need to be there." And they said, "Oh my gosh, can you stay here till our producer gets here? Because we want to do stuff with you."
Yeah.
And I'm dressed as Ron Burgundy, obviously, I guess. And so 5 minutes later, here comes the producer and the camera crew and everybody. And while I'm shooting about 20 minutes of content, I can see myself on the Jumbotron at, Staples Center. I'm like, oh boy, wow. And here's Will. He's down in the green room in the tunnel down below somewhere doing something, right? Getting his fake mustache and his wig put on, whatever. But probably, or at least possibly, there's a TV in that room and it could be what's closed circuit in the building.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. He's going to see this. He's going to know I'm here, whatever like that. And so I started, after the thing, I started building a posse of people, and they started gathering around, and we're walking through the place after I get my commercials and whatever done I did. And so we're heading up towards the sportscasters. And then, so I get up around there's like, concession stands. And then there's like a tunnel that goes, you walk through there and you go up in the stands, right? And so down this hall, there's the sportscaster's room. You go in here, and it's open air. You can see people all up around and whatever. They're kind of open air. They're not in a glass box, really.
Yeah.
And so I get up there, and I'm like, they're like, go down in there, just walk in there. I'm like, I am not gonna do that, And then so we're talking like all these people that were around me, and they're like, look, he's on Instagram Live. He's down in the thing. They're getting ready to, And then I get this tap on the shoulder, and a security guy goes, right this way, sir. And I'm like, what do you mean, right this way? And so I follow him, and we go down the tunnel, we go in the door, and there's a little green room there. And when we get right to the door, and I know that's the sportscaster's booth right there.
Yeah.
And I looked at him, and I said, sir, I'm not Will Ferrell, right? And he did one of these, and I'm like, oh boy, look, I didn't come here to get kicked out of this tonight. I just kind of want to meet Will. So I dressed like Will. I'm just going to go right back out there, and I'm going to wait, see if maybe he sees me, and he'll shake my hand and say hi, take a picture. And so, whoa, okay. So that guy he was like, what? And so I went up, and I went back.
So you almost got someone fired, is what you're
he's
saying.
coming up the elevator. Yeah. Or me kicked out of the building. I mean, I think it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so, and so they're like, he's coming up the elevator. He's in the elevator. He's coming. You're right. And so like down the hallway out here in the walkway, you can see the elevator come up, and here they come out of there. And there's like 6 of the Red Jacket Staples Center. It used to be called Staples Center. And they got the Red Jacket, the security. They're like this. There's a couple of cameras on him, and there's a boom mic down on him. And there's about 6 other suits walking with him, arena management or his people or whoever, people that just are big wig enough to walk with him, but nobody's saying anything. I mean, that microphone might as well not even be there. And he's just walking like the president coming through the place, right? He's just like, shh. And they come like this, and the whole thing turns like this to go to this tunnel, and I'm right there. And he comes around that corner, and he stops, and he looks at me like this. He goes, get out of here. What? And then he just kind of double takes and off, and he goes into the thing and does his thing. And that's all I got out of it. But, so Will, I can't say he's the greatest guy. I really don't know him that well, but yeah, I get to meet everybody. I get to meet all kinds of people doing this. I mean, it's kind of like being celebrity enough to be put with the celebrities sometimes.
Yeah.
But you can go home and you just take it off, and nobody knows you from Adam. You know what I mean? You just can be a normal guy. And so it's super fun. A lot of good stuff.
That's so funny.
Tons more stories.
Well, hey, Will Ferrell,
time.
I know you are my #1 fan, so reach out to me, and I'll connect you to David, and we'll make something happen. We'll do a 3-way podcast.
There you go. Perfect.
Well, David, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much. I know we've been talking for like months, kind of just in relationship, and so I'm glad we got to make this happen. This is going to be the season wrap of season 2 of my podcast, episode 20, and take a few weeks off after this. But thank you for helping end us on a bang here. Merry belated Christmas, because this is probably like mid to late January coming out.
Right.
But you know what?
Yeah,
actually, you know what?
Okay.
Let's do this. Let's take a screenshot here for Instagram now, so that way they can be here. Let's do like you can do a face, and I'll go. Is it this way? Okay, hold on. Let me get this in the frame, and then. Nice. We got a great screenshot for the
Did you get
thumbnail on Instagram there.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Throw it in AI. Dress it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you later.
Ciao.